Hello, my name is Alex Cohen, and to understand accessible pharmacy services, really have to understand my story and my research that led to the creation of accessible pharmacy services. So I was diagnosed with retinitis pigmentosa in my late teens. I had always had trouble seeing throughout my entire childhood, and it only became more apparent as I became a teenager and began doing more and more activities at night. And so I was diagnosed at the Wills Eye Hospital here in Philadelphia. And they said, okay, well, it seems like you have retinitis pigmentosa. I said, okay, what do we do about that? Well, there's not really a lot to be done. I think there's a guy in Boston doing some work on nutrition to see, if there's anything they can do to prevent the progression of the disease. So maybe you should go see him. And that's where I saw began my relationship with the late great Dr. Burson. But um, despite this diagnosis and the progressive loss of my vision, I did finish my undergraduate degree at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. See, since I was a child, I always wanted to be in the hospitality industry. And so as soon as I could, I was 15 years old and started working in Philadelphia hotels and went to school to get a degree in hotel administration. And I stayed out in Las Vegas for a while after earning my degree to work in corporate sales for Mirage Incorporated. And stayed out there for a few years. But as anybody who's ever been out west knows, that you really have to drive everywhere that you go out there. And my vision continued to deteriorate, and I no longer felt comfortable or safe behind the wheel, and decided to move back to Philadelphia to a much more pedestrian-friendly area. But my love of the hotel business and hospitality never really wavered. And so upon moving back, I started again working in hotels and um, started working at a European boutique, small hotel in the Rittenhouse Square area of the city, and was hired on as a director of sales and marketing. And I loved it and worked there, and eventually was promoted to general manager and continued to work there for several years until the hotel was going to be sold for condominiums. And unfortunately, this was around 2000, 2008, 2009. And I started, trying to look for other general manager jobs around Philadelphia. But being blind, this was difficult to do. And so after a few months of an unsuccessful search, I decided to go back to school with the goal of being at first a hospitality professor. And I wanted to, attend Drexel University and get my PhD and work at their hospitality program. And so I ended up soliciting help through the Pennsylvania Department of Blindness and Visual Services and Occupational Vocational Rehabilitation. And I formed a collaboration between these agencies and the Office of Disability Resources at Drexel University, and first achieved my master's degree in hospitality management, casino marketing, and continued on to achieve my PhD, my doctorate in marketing from the LeBeau College of Business. And while I was at pursuing my doctorate in marketing, it was brought to my attention that there are really many more opportunities for marketing professors than there were for hospitality professors. And so I kind of switched my route to marketing. And so I started the program in 2012, graduated in 2017, and had been working as a assistant professor of marketing at the Westchester University of Pennsylvania since the fall of 2017. So for about 10 years, I have been working and researching all about how to create a more inclusive marketplace for the disabled community. Now, there's a lot of components to this. And so one of the first things that I had done as part of my dissertation was I did an audit to see, what type of literature, what type of research exists on the marketplace experience of the disabled. And so I did an audit of the top 35 marketing journals since 1990, the beginning of the Americans with Disabilities Act, at least through 2016, 2017. So looking at almost a 26, 27 year span of potential literature. And of the almost 40,000 articles that had been published in those 35 journals over almost that 30-year time period, there were 26 articles that had anything at all to do with accessibility or the experience of people with disabilities in the marketplace. So as a researcher, I was excited because, wow, what a wide open field to study, but also there wasn't wasn't a great body of previous work to build on. And the community working in this area, particularly within marketing, was quite small. But nevertheless, I felt that the work was important, and pursued this research agenda with vigor. And so there are a lot of different projects that I've worked on over the years. But what I wanted to talk to you about today was really the fundamental principles behind researching, the disabled population's experience in the marketplace. There are really two fundamental works on which everything else is built. The first is a paper all about consumer normalcy by Stacy Menzel-Baker that appeared in the Journal of Retailing in 2006. And so consumer normalcy, to shop is normal. To shop is everyday pedestrian behavior, right? Everybody shops. Everybody is a consumer. And so consumer normalcy the construct consists of four distinct items. The first is the ability to participate in the marketplace. The second is to demonstrate competence and control in the marketplace. The third is to achieve distinction in the marketplace. And the fourth is to be perceived as an equal in the marketplace. Now, I thought about this a lot. And actually, my research team and I have been working very hard on trying to publish a paper. We had developed a scale based on consumer normalcy and really had examined the principle of consumer normalcy as it pertains to a service failure that would be discriminatory in nature versus a non-discrimination based service failure, and how this construct behaves with other variables that are commonly researched in service literature, like things like avoidance and negative word of mouth and anti-firm reactions. So this consumer normalcy paper really provided a wonderful framework and platform to identify what some of the internalized experiences were. Not that consumer normalcy is necessarily unconscious, because, for example, this particular paper interviewed, I believe it was 30 blind participants, but because the blind consumer never forgets that they're blind. So this isn't really, operating unconsciously. But the second paper was all about looking at the construct of welcome in the marketplace. And this was a paper done by Kaufman, Scarborough, Holland, and Baker. I believe it was in the Journal of Consumer Service in 2007. And so the concept of welcome is derived by 4 distinct items. And whenever there is a negative interaction between a person's disability and any one of these items, dissatisfactory service experience will be the result. So the first part of welcome is the physical environment of the store. Now, so we take this to be, the physical environment of the store, or if you're looking at websites and website accessibility, it could be, the layout of the website. So the layout of the store, the personnel and interactions with the personnel, interactions with other patrons, other customers in the marketplace, and then finally the offerings of the store. And so once again, if there's an interaction, a negative interaction between the physical environment, personnel, other customers in the store, or the offerings that are available, there will be a dissatisfactory experience. Now, so these two concepts of consumer normalcy and welcome. Okay, so what do we do with those, and how do those fit into the greater theoretical landscape? Well, I guess first and foremost comes the idea of working with, expectancy confirmation or disconfirmation theories, like contrast theory or expectancy disconfirmation, where every service experience is based on an expectation. And so the consumer experiences, goes through the experience and makes an assessment. And this assessment is based on what was expected by the customer and what was the actual experience. And does a gap exist between what was expected and what was experienced? And that gap can represent a level of dissatisfaction. And so I started investigating and researching how consumer normalcy, if there's an expectation of consumer normalcy, if there's an expectation of welcome, being, wanted and welcome as a customer. Is this an expectation that I should have, and or that the customer should have? And if there's a gap where someone feels unwanted or unwelcome, then obviously a dissatisfactory service experience will be the result. Furthermore, I often research and connect to attribution theory, which shows that the customer holds the retailer, holds the marketplace accountable for these service failures. So that's the theoretical landscape of a lot of my research. But even more specifically, I look at not just the physical marketplace, but really the online marketplace. And the online marketplace, in terms of the history of shopping, is still reasonably new. And as we all are well aware, we've had a little bit of difficulty here and there with the legislation not being entirely clear and forthcoming about the accessibility of commercial or retail websites. And so, I started this pursuit, and there have been a few scholars who have researched this in the past and, have done tremendous work. But some of the work can be, is quite dated, particularly when considering the technological advancements that have been made in the past 10 or 15 years with assistive technology and website design, as well as marketing, accessibility, the number of consultants that are available in the field to help people with their website accessibility. And so in terms of looking at how these service failures that would be accessibility based, right, through an inaccessible website, how do consumers react to these specific experiences? How are these expectations disconfirmed, and are they disconfirmed in the same manner? And do both consumer normalcy and feelings of welcome come into play within this disconfirmation, even if it's in the online environment? And what we found is they do. They do. It does not change as a fact of being online versus being in a physical store. And so we wanted to see how widespread the problem was. And so began doing evaluations, accessibility evaluations, based on the World Wide Web 2.0 Consortia, or World Wide Web Consortia 2.0 guidelines, in a 5-year study looking at the top 100 retailers according to the National Retail Federation. And so this list is quite a varied list. It contains all different types of retailers, from restaurants and department stores, hardware stores, bookstores, clothing, grocery stores, you name it. It's just everything is on this list. And of course, there were also pharmacies. And pharmacies are some of the top retailers that we have in the United States. And so over this 5-year study, looking at the year-over-year changes to see, has anything improved in accessibility? Has anything, any particular markets or types of stores deteriorated in their accessibility? And the truth was, it stayed pretty constant, but it was constantly inaccessible. All of the sites contained multiple errors, and we were looking at home pages, transaction landing pages, as well as the entire website accessible versus inaccessible content. And we, and so I've been working in this space, and then my younger son goes to an elementary school here in Philadelphia, and I was introduced to my friend and business partner now, Andy Burstein, who had been working in the accessibility space, trying to work to make websites more accessible, and actually had developed a tool that could make most websites accessible through the plugin that he and his company had developed. But anyway, we got to talking, and he asked me about my research and started really zeroing in on some of these different industries that had such inaccessible websites. Because, I mean, everybody knows the website is the window to your business, right? It's where people go first now. There's very little, the investigation, the information that's available. The search is easy to find what you're looking for, and know that you're in the right place. And we noticed that the pharmacies were quite concerning. And we thought, well, this has more implications than just the retail environment. And it has more implications than, digital equity as it pertains to the retail environment. And so we started doing more research specifically into pharmacies. and did a lot of field research and went in and would ask the pharmacist, so what do you do for blind patients? And some pharmacies would say, well, we don't have much. It's like, okay, it's not a great answer, but it's an answer. The next might be something like, well, we can print out the labels larger if that would help you. And maybe for people with different low vision maladies, yes, maybe that would work. And the third, the best possible answer that we had received in doing this field research was that I think we have something somewhere that might read labels to people. I can't remember what it's called, but if you can, give me some time and come back, I can look up what that's all about for you. Okay, so that's where we are. And of course, they were talking about an absolutely wonderful product that we know and love as Script Talk, that uses RFID technologies to read labels either through a phone application or through a device that's available to the community, usually free of charge. So so after doing the field research, we started actually asking more people. You always survey the population, see what they think, see what their problems are, what issues are they facing, what are their experiences, and so with that, armed with all of our research, we have 5 years of data about how inaccessible the websites are. We have data about the actual experiences that people have while they're in the physical pharmacy. We have hours and hours of tests calling 1-800 customer service lines, asking about accessibility related accommodations. How easy is it to get accessibility accommodations? How long do we have to wait on hold? We did a lot. We did a lot of field work in this. And what we realized is that this market, the blind and low vision market, when we first started, was really being underserved. It was not considered. Now, through my work, through my research, and through my own experiences as a blind person, I know that there's not inaccessibility with malice. There aren't people that are out there that, we don't care about the blind people. We don't care if they can use our website or this. There's not some kind of diabolical, session going on. Now, again, maybe there is, maybe there isn't. As people should be aware of, website accessibility at this point. There have been certainly more than enough lawsuits and major lawsuits that this should have gotten the attention of retailers. But we still, as a community, like to think that there's not anything, diabolical behind this. It's more of, let's say, an awareness issue. And then as it becomes an awareness issue, maybe it is also a dollars and cents issue, because we know that it is exponentially more expensive to retrofit an inaccessible website than to build a website, construct a website accessibly from the very beginning. Anyway, but we're talking about people's healthcare, right? Pharmacies are important to people's healthcare. It's not just a place to buy deodorant and dog food. It really is where people get their prescription medication, get information. It's an important part of people's day-to-day health routines. And here's a large market that really just isn't being paid attention to in any way. And so after deliberating and planning and going back and forth for several weeks, we decided, well, you know what, we should do this. But I mean, I know a lot about accessibility and research, uh, and I certainly know a lot about being blind. Um, and Andy Burstein knows a great deal about accessibility and accessibility technology and certain, entrepreneurship. So what we're missing is pharmacy, the pharmacy partner, because we are both business people, and so we were introduced to Dr. Jason Barrett, who is a PharmD, and was working in the suburbs of Philadelphia, and had a business specializing in providing medication management regimes to assisted living facilities. And so we started talking to him about this idea, and that a lot of the functionality that we would need to maybe help the blind and low vision community existed, but wasn't really being used in that capacity. And so we were able to kind of come together and develop certain ideas and things that we could do to create more accessible packaging, have all sorts of different labeling options. And so that was the first thing to come up. But that's not all there is to it. It's not just providing accessible, packaging or things. It's more of a philosophy. It's more about building a community. Remember, I'm a hospitality guy at heart, so it's all about treating people as if they were your guest. And so it's not just about accommodations and accessibility. It's also about service and making people feel wanted and welcome, and that there is a better option out there for them, which is the philosophy behind accessible pharmacy services. Look, medication management is difficult for anybody. If you throw in the additional, confounding variable of sight loss, it makes things even more difficult. And so we really needed to find a way to marry all of these different things, from a high level service platform, also with a superior clinical footprint, to offer the best possible medication management information and services, while making everything as accessible as possible. Now, we are not a technology company, nor do we claim to be, nor do we want to be. But we have become particularly adept at recognizing technology that could be useful in this space. And then, combining that technology within the healthcare space to better serve our patients and to do everything we can to alleviate those burdens that they might have. And so from the research standpoint, always coming back to research and how we can continue to improve based on this initial idea, right? The pursuit of accessibility is ongoing. It's continuous. Can't just make our website as accessible as possible and say, all right, we're done, because the website's always being updated with new information and new multimedia. So it's an ongoing process. Learning about what's new and what's available and what's out there is important for us as healthcare providers, for our patients, for our customers. So it is an ongoing pursuit. Now, to talk about accessibility, accommodations, and the marketplace. In marketing, we often talk about the consumer decision-making process. And the consumer decision-making process starts with need recognition. So it's need recognition. It's, we're here to, provide products and services to meet people's needs. There's pain in the marketplace. I'm cold, I'm hungry, I have a headache, I have high cholesterol, whatever it is, right? We have a product that can remedy that pain, right? That's what we do with creating products. So we have starts with need recognition, and then go to information search, right? Where people are looking for information where they can get something or what could alleviate the pain they have. And then finally looking at the alternative set where, okay, I've done all this information search. Now I have a few different things that I can, select from. Then it's actually, making the decision. The shopping transaction experience, and then consumption, and then evaluation. Now, what happens is a company, a big organization, might have one step in that consumer decision-making process to be accessible. But there's so much more to it than that. So let me give you an example, right? There are things that exist out there in the marketplace that certain companies are very proud of, and they should be. And anytime anybody makes any strides for accessibility accommodations, that's great, and it should be applauded. Anything that we can do to make the marketplace more inclusive, it's the right thing to do. But say, for example, a company has an app, and that app can read prescription labels. And that's what it does. And that's all it does. What about all of those other steps in the consumer decision-making process? There's so much more than just reading the label. So at Accessible Pharmacy Services, we make each step of the process as accessible as possible, through, matching products and services with accessibility that will meet the needs and remedy the pain of our customers, but also making sure that all of our communication channels and platforms are as accessible as possible, whether that be, our very accessible website, or, we really just encourage more often than not for our patients just to call us, have a conversation with one of our customer care coordinators who we, have specially trained to speak with the blind and low vision community to help explain things in such a way where we're not, where sight is not assumed. We also, through the consumption shipping process, we have Braille labeling on our packaging if necessary. We also communicate via text or email in an accessible way when packages have been shipped, and have very easy ways to communicate and contact us through the entire process. So when somebody gets onboarded with Accessible Pharmacy Services, we take their insurance information, and then we contact their existing pharmacy. We contact all of their prescribing physicians and get them all on the same page under the Accessible Pharmacy Services banner so that we can be in charge of their medication management and make sure that the cardiologist knows what the primary care physician is doing, or the psychiatrist, or the endocrinologist, or whomever they might be working with, or something, developing an entire plan for diabetes management, to try and, always with the pursuit of looking at healthier outcomes. Now, we also don't rely so heavily on technology. As I did mention, we want to provide the option of the phone, because we understand that the blind and low vision community is not homogeneous in any way. We have, spreads through all kinds of different age ranges, different education levels, rural versus suburban versus urban. People had different health maladies, different support systems, different income levels, so many different things. The only commonality might be the blind or low vision aspect. So we don't rely on technology. We use it as a tool, as a platform, but we also understand that a good deal of our patients skew a bit older due to some age-related eye diseases and might not be quite as comfortable using certain technology. So whether we use, no tech, low tech, or high tech solutions, we find what works for that individual patient, because that's the case. Each person is an individual. Now, I don't usually talk like that when I'm doing my research, where everything is aggregated and clustered, but at least for accessible pharmacy services, each patient is just that, an individual patient. So the pursuit of accessibility continues, trying to find new ways to work with our partners and work with our patients to find solutions. We recently began working with the Helen Keller Foundation and have been finding solutions for DeafBlind, dual sensory loss patients, and learning more about that. It's a reasonably new area that we just started getting into over the past few months that we're very excited, and we're very excited to learn. We never stop learning from our patients, from all of these different wonderful organizations that we are with, to learn about these different patient populations, but also continuing to work with different state agencies who are looking to see if the services that we offer actually do produce healthier outcomes in these patients, and they do. And that's something that we're very proud of. So I guess I know that that's a lot to throw out to an audience all at one time, but the reason why accessible pharmacy services has been successful is because of these, the spirit, this philosophy of inclusion and welcome and community we have, and just trying to alleviate the burden. And hey, let those other big guys, shoot for the middle of the population, right? Where accessible pharmacy, accessible accommodations is what we do. Accessibility is not an afterthought for us. And our research-based, programs and my continued work shows that, this is effective. Just the idea of providing a welcoming environment where people are wanted and expected as customers. Who knew that would be such a great business idea? But it has been quite successful, and we're very proud of the reputation and awareness that we've been getting over the past 2 years since we began in the middle of the pandemic. Now, we didn't mean to start the business in the middle of the pandemic, or actually at the beginning of the pandemic, but offering free home delivery is a really great way to help the blind and low vision community maybe keep safer during the pandemic, where public transportation safety might have been somewhat questionable. The ability to social distance, there's a lot to it. So keeping our patients healthy and safe was a top priority for us, and in many ways, has just continued to progress in other directions, especially now that hopefully the pandemic is starting to subside where you are geographically, as it is now in Philadelphia. So I guess at this time, I'd like to see if the audience has any questions, either about the research that I've done or accessible pharmacy services, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much.